definitely take a look at that. As we move into salaries and benefits high school, we'll do a big chunk here, lines 2070 to 2102.
$2077. Why did we not have a line item there for 2025 for a Spanish teacher?
I'd have to do more research and see we definitely had a Spanish teacher last year, so.
Leanne, is that just part of, like, some of the, like, it doesn't necessarily match up? Because how many math teachers do we have in the high school?
Is it 5.5?
Leanne, that could be, we had two Spanish teachers. One taught full-time Spanish, the other one taught Spanish as well as some family consumer sciences. So perhaps the year before it, they categorized that teacher as more family consumer science, and as her schedule changed, maybe now they're categorizing her as Spanish. Could be.
We have no Spanish teacher in the high school listed.
Oh, throughout all of them, there's not
I don't
even.
see it here. I mean, as I'm scrolling down them.
Oh,
So last year there was, I've been looking at the file, there was a lot of like teacher 1, teacher 2, teacher 3, teacher 4, teacher 5. They weren't categorized. I pulled the Spanish teacher out and put it on her own line. She may have been one of those miscellaneous teachers that weren't named last year.
Okay.
Right. So, Leanne, kind of back to what I was saying before, like, if you look, like, it looks like in 2025, we had 6 math teachers, but in 2026, we only have 5.
Yeah, I see.
Or, same thing with social studies. We had 5 social studies, but in 26, we only have 4. So it looks like we're losing teachers in some areas, but yet in other areas, we're gaining. Like, in 2025, we only have 4 science teachers, but in 2026, we're going to have 5. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So,
And so there should be a pair. There should be pairs, which it looks like there is. You know what I mean?
Right.
If one was moved
yeah,
one
if one
place.
was missing, one should
Yeah.
be gained on the other side.
It's confident that the number of teachers is present and represented, as well as their benefits and salaries being represented here within this framework. Field trips, high school, lines 2127 to line 2152.
Dr. Fox?
Yes.
Is it the same that AIDS, line 2101, will also get removed because that's a duplicate?
Yes. $21.58 to $21.60 postage. $21.66, $21.67, some dues and, or some travel associated with some of the above conferences or trips.
So do we not count, so I see we budget for substitutes under field trips. Do we not just budget that in our regular substitutes?
Anytime we do a field trip, we try to do a total cost of that trip, which would include the substitutes for it and then the related transportation on another line, I believe.
Okay.
There will be in this budget those substitutes as well, that are substitutes for those who have a personal day or a sick day, but these are specific to that total cost of trip. Am I speaking correctly to that? Supplies High School. Lines 2402 to 2580. Books and printed material, high school, lines 2587 to lines 2594. So dues and fees, high school, we do see some Youth Art Day submission fees here located under the high school as well.
And CASIF.
Yes. Dues and fees for basic life support or for CPR, I believe. Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry. Was there, oh,
Yeah, no, so I guess my question is that $1,700 that it was at the very beginning, just what it cost us as a district to participate in Youth Art Day?
so it was under elementary, we'll have to explore that further and see if that
Yeah.
includes all the students, all 600 at the elementary? Or is it exclusive for elementary, or is it for the entire
Fair
district?
district.
And if it is, then we'll make those adjustments accordingly, but we'll have to explore that deeper. I don't have that answer off the top of my
Okay.
head.
Two 2605, what does that pertain to? Sounds like it would be PJazz, yeah.
That's the PJazz registration fees. So many do it at the school, 5 go to regionals, and
The miscellaneous expense? Oh, go ahead.
I think then kind of aligning those fees with what's at the middle school, they should probably be pretty close, right? The case of registration fees and the PJAS registration fees. What do you think? Because they go through the same process. Well, it is 9 through 12, right. Right, but you had more lines. You had more lines on underneath middle school? In terms of the. Yeah, yeah, and you have, I think there were like 4 total. Yeah, like on yours, you have case of regional per grade level, case of state, PJS regional, and then case of registration. And I think it probably should be, probably should be the PJAS state. Because the only thing that goes beyond case of is the grand champion going to the national level.
I think what we need to do is we'll go back and we'll get kind of an itemized listing
Yeah.
of what the registration fees are, what does that encompass, how many kids that encompasses. We'll do the same for Youth Art Day and try to get a breakdown of what these dues and fees are, what it encompasses in terms of that, and then what some of the ancillary costs may be.
I think regardless, we're all in support of them doing all of this, you
Yeah,
know?
just making sure that we have enough as we move forward, that if we need to adjust it one way,
Right.
we certainly can, for sure.
And I guess are those sometimes the things that if all the districts are doing it, all the districts, all the buildings are doing it, I don't know what you think, Leanne, is it better to just do that as one lump sum under like almost like a district thing versus breaking it out per building? I don't know.
We have to break it down as we put it into our system by building, so it's better this way. Because what you see, really, you see some of the long codes here, but then they're even longer of how we have to categorize them within our accounting software and system.
For the high school's youth art day, we estimate 40 students are going to participate in dollars a student. A lot of kids that do it.
I think that, like, when you're,
Yeah, it's true.
And walking down the elementary, I remember seeing on the wall, they had their own like med exhibit where they had the artwork of the students. And I remember one of the paintings of Josh Allen was really good and it had a ribbon on it. No, but whoever did it, I would love to purchase it.
Mahomes.
Yeah, we'll just go back and just make sure that is enough, that it's not under, that it's a clear kind of more of a description for that, as well as PJS, to make sure that anyone who wants to participate, that we have the funds to be able in the budget to support that. And our principals do a good job too of ensuring that in their discretionary, that they have, in the event that there is a larger sign up than usual, that's where some of those reserves come into play, which makes it really nice to be able to support that. And I think it's great that you as a board support these contests as well, for the students to really dive into their passions and unleash their passions and continue to meet. It's not so much just the product itself, but meeting others, competing, showcasing, discussing, and putting yourself out there, and taking that calculated risk, which is incredible. We do have some miscellaneous expenses here. You'll see, as we say, science fair ribbons and science fair plaques, to showcase again, and some, one of my favorite things, pizza, for our own youth day here and field day that we do for our students within the school district. Did we cover just about every category there? All right, where are we on to next?
Federal program?
Let's dive into federal programs. It's going to be item number 1190, so I will, if we have a microphone, I will ask Ms. Snyder to help me out as well, as she does a great job of coordinating a lot of our federal programs, and does a great job of ensuring that those applications are detailed and thorough, and the backup documentation is available, and it's a lot. So really, under federal programs here, it is looking at.
It's basically salaries and benefits, right?
Yep.
So
Title
we
I.
have- Yeah,
Oh,
we
go
have
ahead.
three, two reading specialists and a math specialist under Title I. And then Title II is our data instruction specialist at the elementary, and Title IV is our STEM teacher. So,
We do not get enough Title I funds to support fully these programs, and when they don't, they are offset by the general budget.
Yeah, we have, I think we get, our allocation covers our Title I specialist. It's Title II and IV, where we only get a portion.
Where was Title I reading specialist 2 and Title I? Or are they new?
I think they were together.
Yeah.
Look at 2025, it looks like they're
Oh,
together.
yeah, they're all
Oh,
together.
it didn't. Thank you.
I have no idea what I did. Is there any other categories we want to tackle?
Oh, yeah, we're.
Yep.
Facts.
Oh, my fault. We're going to go into family consumer science. 1340. What's that? Line 1340, Family Consumer Science. We have Family Consumer Science at the middle school and some supplies for the middle school. She's done an incredible job at the middle school, lots of different labs, lots of different activities for the students. The high school, we have two family consumer science teachers. That's where you'll see the second, located more under the family consumer science than you will Spanish. She is certified in both, so we're fortunate, and she spends time, a few subjects of Spanish depending on the need, the class and the master schedule, and then family consumer science, family development, child development, in classes as well as culinary arts. Some supplies for our family consumer science program located here. And the rising costs of food prices, depending on what happens currently, could go up or down. And yeah, definitely. All right, if there are no questions on family and consumer science, we will take a look at,
Industrial arts,
thank you,
1350.
1350 industrial arts. We have industrial arts or technical education at the middle school. You'll see some basic equipment and repair, replacement, hoses, belts. Tech Ed middle school supplies. Not a lot of area at either school to have large storage for wood or those types of materials, so they'll order those probably based on marking period or when they transition classes, depending on the need. So there's not, again, that bulk order because of that limited availability. Interestingly enough, either of those rooms in the technical ed programs do not have exterior access to get material in either. But this is a budget meeting, not a facilities discussion, so I'll continue here as some shipping and handling costs. Technical education at the high school, we have one teacher. He's done a great job of balancing a multitude of different preparations and a multitude of different classes that he rotates through to give the students a vast experience. Everything from building construction maintenance to some electrical to some small engine repair as well.
Are we still looking at Project Lead the Way as kind of taking the lead curriculum-wise there in that department eventually?
Eventually, at this point, we're at Project Lead the Way in our computer science, and we have Project Lead the Way in Algebra 1, and Project Lead the Way in the elementary school, and in our STEM program at the middle school. And that rounds out some equipment we'll see here for tech ed at high school, middle school. 1316.
Yep.
We're going to dive into business education, 1360. We do business education at the high school. He's done an excellent job of rewriting and reworking the curriculum. Some basic supplies for our business education program. One of the elements you'll see, I believe, as we get into the technology budget, I think there's some refreshing of some of the devices that are in there, the computers that are in there. They're getting relatively dated.
So from the schedule on the front, this is where I had us getting through to today. So we can either continue on, whatever you'd like to do there. Any chance that we can to knock weeks off the end, I think is a good thing since we're all in the room. If we want to continue through instruction, we can, and then we can start with special ed then next week. That's up to you guys.
We have our principals here if we want to go into the principals component.
Nope.
Oh,
We're going to keep going in order, though.
I'm sorry.
Guidance?
Yes, sir.
Sorry.
I tried to do this last time. He said no.
Concrete.
All right, taking a look at our school counselors programs. We have the elementary school. We have two outstanding school counselors. And you'll see Director of Special Education. And the question you're going to ask me is, why is Director of Special Education under school counseling? And the magical answer is the charts of accounts lists all aspects of special education. And then it says at the bottom, I believe, except for the Director of Special Education who needs to be classified under school counseling. And that's why it's there. I think it's a test to see if you read it. I'm not sure. Some dues and fees at the elementary school for some memberships into some professional organizations to continue to support their professional growth and learning. Some supplies. School counselors at the middle school. Again, two outstanding school counselors to support our students. Two conferences to be determined. Oh, sorry. So I believe under,
Real quick, just so I have that. We don't usually pay for biz now because junior achievement gets sponsors for us.
Okay.
But we budget 4,000 a year just in case we don't.
yeah, oh, go ahead.
Just because we're streaming, we probably want to try to use a microphone for all the hundreds of people that are out there at home listening.
So we'll review that, Mr. Black, but I think under line 53, where it says JA supplies, I'm pretty sure that that's, if you're, your buses are in line 46? And that includes the entire entity of the program, I believe, in order to support it. That's incredible. And it is a really, really outstanding program. And thanks to all of our sponsors, and to all of our volunteers who come in to make it work. It's incredible. I heard a couple of students the other day talking about what careers they wanted to do within it, being a banker, and somebody wants to run for mayor. A couple people superintendent, so it's pretty outstanding. Tough crowd tonight. I don't know. Maybe my jokes are pretty bad, or it's just been a long week. I don't know. Or a combination of the two. I'll work on that. I need one of those laugh-o-meters where I just touch and it laughs. School-wide assemblies, dues and fees for guidance in middle school as well, and high school. High school does have an outstanding secretary who does a lot to coordinate, especially when it comes to transcripts and making sure that college applications, organizing a lot of what happens within the school counselor's office. And we have two counselors at the high school currently. And in here is also, we placed our transition coordinator who works with the special education students as well as regular education students. We transition work experience, looking at co-op, or one could say, as we get into a diversified occupations program. High school field trips and post-secondary trips, as well as training groups and activities. Conferences to be named. And some supplies here at the guidance, high school guidance office. See different colored paper, lots of different posters to gain student attention as it's posted throughout the buildings, as well as passive programming for bulletin boards. Dues and fees at the high school. And some miscellaneous costs associated at the high school.
Somebody just fixed one, I saw it. I wondered if that was you.
I thought I better not do that. I'll get in trouble.
Yeah, there's a good zip right there.
Afraid I was gonna pull a Marcy there, like the whole thing would go away. That's why I said I better stop.
I'm not touching it.
Okay, and that takes up school counseling. What would we like to tackle next?
We scroll across here. School library, 2250.
All right. 2250. All right, taking a look at school library, you'll see outstanding school librarian at the elementary school, salary benefits, some supplies for the elementary school. And it's a special, so the students rotate through on a regular rotation cycle at the elementary school. She does a great job of fostering and continuing to foster that love of reading. Books and printed materials at the elementary school. And it's good to see lines number 42 and 43. Those two were my favorite two periodicals growing up, or magazines growing up, that helped foster that love of reading for me, because that was what I really sincerely enjoyed. Especially number 42, yeah, the Ranger Rick. All right, I'll stop talking and go through middle school. So at the high school and middle school, we have a librarian that shares between the two buildings, and she does a great job of really doing a lot for the school district, and she shares time between the two. And to support, there is a library aide located here at the middle school. There is no library aide at the high school. Some supplies for The library as well? And I'll have to get me a line, I'll have to try one of those line 100, the cheeseburger scented bookmark. You have to put it in the back, so when, no, never mind. Books and printed material, I gotta stop talking. Books and printed material, library, middle school. Some nonfiction and fiction books to maintain and refresh and recirculate, keeping those books fresh. Subscription to the Duncannon Record. The high school. Some supplies here. And some books and printed material. New and replacement books, as well as a subscription to the Duncannon Record. Any question on the library science, library program? Hearing none, we'll go to the next tab.
2260.
Thank you. 2260 is curriculum and instruction, so we will toss over the microphone.
Okay, taking a look at curriculum and instruction, we have some salaries there. Also added in this year is the Early Birds Kindergarten Summer Camp. If you guys remember, the last couple summers that we've had that program has been funded through ESSER funds, and those have unfortunately expired, so we are asking to add that into the budget this year. And then also some funds continued from last year for curriculum writing to kind of carry us into the summer.
If I may.
Sure.
That was one of the questions that I had overall in this budget, and I just wasn't sure when to ask it. That's a perfect segue.
Sure.
I was wondering if at a future budget meeting, or even before then, you could send us a list of all the things that we had in our budget last year that were paid through ESSERs that will not be paid this year. So we can take a look at those things, because we had decided we weren't going to balance our budget on ESSERs funds. And so I think we should look at every one of those things that were in our budget that were covered by ESSERs, and really look at every one of them, whether or not that's something we want to continue in our budget or not. This is not a hill I want to die on, this particular item, but that's what, $600,000 or something?
ESSERS.
ESSERs?
Well, it depends on which program. I mean, I think ESSERS 3 was close to,
1.9 million over so many years, so.
But over last year alone, it was
Over last year, we'd have to look and see exactly
That's-
specifically what we spent.
about 800.
yep.
So I guess my overall question is that $800,000 or $900,000 that was paid for by ESSERs last year, what was that spent on, and are we sucking that up in our deficit or not? Because we had agreed to try really, really hard. We would use the ESSERs money to buy what we could for kids, and when it was gone, it was gone. And this would be a perfect example of this program. And I think it behooves us, looking at the deficit we're looking at, to look at all those ESSERs funds and decide, is this something we want to add to our budget, or is this something that we don't want to keep?
Yeah, and there's a couple things as we move on. You'll see where it'll say ESSERS, and it'll see the year that it comes off. Because certain subscriptions, as we went into for programs like IXL or iReady, we purchased those for the length that we could purchase those.
Yeah.
And then it will say the year that it comes off. So that will be a decision depending on what and how we use it, where we're at in terms of our new math program, looking at reading, new reading programs that will need to be, adopted or approved by that point, where we're at and what we need and where the state is at in developing their diagnostic and how that rolls out, called Firefly, and what that looks like. Is it user-friendly? Does it give us the data we need? And those types of things. But yes, we can absolutely, we'll share our spending plan. That goes all the way from ESSERS 2 and ESSERS 3, and you'll see that broke out by year.
Yeah, I don't know that I need all that. I really don't. Like, I guess, do we have any ESSERS money next year?
No.
No, it's all gone, right?
Right.
Correct.
So I really don't need the historic anything of ESSERS. What I want to know is what's currently being paid for by ESSERS, and ESSERS is completely gone next year. That's really all I care about. I really don't, unless the other people might want to know otherwise. But like, I really don't want to go through the whole history of ESSERS, but ESSERS is gone. What were we paying for with any amount of ESSERS that's still in our budget next year? And I think it behooves us, because we made a commitment that we were going to try very hard not to use ESSERS money to balance a budget. I think it behooves us to look at every one of those things and decide, this has proven to be important enough, we'll find the money for it, or, yeah, this is a great program, but we would have never done this if it weren't for the free money, and the free money's gone.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yes,
So-
it does.
So maybe we
Yep.
can get that.
For next week?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep, that's not hard at all. Absolutely. And that's a great question. It helps us make those decisions as we go down the road, because I don't believe there's necessarily this year implications, but I believe it for a lot of those, some of those programs that we purchased, or took some of the cost savings because they were eligible programs. A lot of the things we initially scripted within our ESSERS program are not in this budget. And then what we were able to do is certain things came in at a lower rate, and we were able to offset with some of those computer programs that we had and said, okay, if we can utilize that cost savings for 3 years, then why not? But it
Right.
gives us that chance to look at how are we using those programs? Do we want to continue with them? Is that what we need moving forward? And if those answers are yes, then you're exactly right. We want to make sure we preserve it in here.
And again, nobody wants to cut programs that are helping our children. But some of these things we would have never, ever done had the government not said, here's a couple $1 million for you to spend. You know, but it's only gonna last for 3 years.
Yeah.
And so we were gonna use that, but it wasn't money that we had otherwise. That's why we tried really diligently not to hire extra staff with
That's
that
correct.
money or do anything like that. We did pretty good with some of that.
Yeah, what we were able to do with some of that in terms of not hiring staff is we were able to, because it's one of the few times in federal programs that you could actually supplant, utilizing some of those cost savings by offsetting with ESSERS by not adding additional staff, but charging it to that particular area. And that is not in this anymore. That's gone. So this is true to reflecting all the staffing, and no staffing was removed due to an ESSERS consideration.
Well, I think it was designed that way intentionally to get us to be in the situation we're in now, which is why we have to intentionally go back and take a look at it.
Yep.
How, for the early birds kindergarten summer camp, how many,
Kids?
yeah, how many kids overall have we been able, like, how many can we serve in one?
Yeah, typically, our kindergarten teachers have been, so you see the 7,500 for our staffing. Marcy, what that gets us is probably, I would say we're close to maybe 2/3, but it's varied the last couple summers. We get over half, though. Yeah, so again, because we don't provide transportation, it's in the mornings over those 4 days. So we're trying as much as possible to get as many of those kids to come to the camp, you know, to work with their teachers. It's intentional placement and scheduling, but that's kind of what's the average has been the last few summers.
So those were an ESSERS program. We were, for early birds and STEAM Ahead, as they were both ESSERS program as part of that learning loss. That is something we love the concept of the program. The teachers have done a phenomenal job, but we have to look at the sustainability of it. It's in here right now, but we will continue to look at that sustainability of it to see if there's another way we can get information out to parents ahead of time. It's been incredible. The teachers have been incredible. But again, we need to look at that 100%.
And I love the concept, because we all know early intervention, we could save a lot of money if we can get to them early and make up some of the problems that they're having before they get here. I was also wondering, and I don't want to get too deep in the woods, like we have so many teachers, but do we only hire X number of teachers per students, or do we just say, okay, you 5 teachers are coming in for this camp, regardless of how many kids we have?
we actually, like, we will set aside so many and then have some people on like the back burner if we need to ask them to come in because our enrollment is higher than what we originally thought. So we do try to organize it that way, yeah, until we get those final numbers.
Thank you.
I actually really like the idea of the early birds, just because I think so often you have kids coming in at all different levels, so really giving them a chance to be able to do that and give the teachers a chance, knowing how much they're faced when they come in kindergarten. So I'm actually surprised. I didn't realize it was that many, that almost half or 2/3 of our kindergarten
Doing really
class
well with enrollment.
come in. So I think when you look at that cost to the number of kids, to me, looking at the overall return on investment, and then just that number for supplies isn't, to me, when you look at that, long-term benefits, and I'd be interested to hear some of the data then, as you guys potentially have done this more and more, what you guys are potentially seeing compared to maybe previous years when you didn't do something like that.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of that feedback, the quantitative feedback initially too, and having that comfort that first day, which really helps to save multiple days on that back end when that student feels a little bit more comfortable knowing what that school looks like and how to navigate it. Absolutely. One thing we do want to point out is line number 24. We'll have a presentation. Mrs. Walsman, Mrs. Lang, Ms. Snyder, Mr. Ward, and our teachers reviewed some of that material, I believe, today, and will again through the course of the next couple of days. We are looking at a new math program. Trying to narrow that down. I think, I won't steal all the thunder of the presentation, but in March caucus, they will come back and give an overview of that whole research that they've done. And when I say research, it has been a research driven project, and one that lots of hours and feedback and reviews, interviews, visits, material gathering and collection. But I believe line number 24 is going to be higher than what $75,000 is. I believe it's going to be closer to probably 111,000 or somewhere in that range. So we will do what we can to look if we, again, when we adopt a new program or come to you with a consideration of a new program for approval, our job is to see if there's other programs that we have in here that are support programs that we no longer need because this program offers those support. Now, will it equal this equilibrium? I can't speak to that right now yet.
I have a question, though. Is there any possibility of, if it's a 6-year subscription, being able to pay for it over the 6 years? Or is that going to be, that's not $100,000 every year for the next 6 years, is it?
It is not.
Right. So I was wondering, is there a way?
There is. My philosophical approach would be if you adopt it and you're committed to it and you're committed to that learning and the implementation, pay for it.
No, I'm not saying that we wouldn't be committed to it. I'm saying that it divides it up over 6 years as opposed to us getting hit with $100,000, almost like budgeting, almost like paying for it on a budget. So if we would do,
Yeah.
it would be $12,000 or $15,000 per year for the next 6 years rather than banging it all out at 111. I don't know if they even give you that option. Maybe it's more expensive if you do it that way. Do you know?
And I think it depends on the program. The
Okay.
program that we're hoping to present to you very, very soon does do that, Leanne, that we would be able, if you guys, if that's what you would rather do. There would be a little more year one cost because of getting the teacher kits that are in print. We would have all that stuff shipped to us. But then your years afterwards for consumables, you can budget those out. And I think what we are looking at is more of a 5-year term. And again, I think it's just depending on how you guys want to handle it, because what happens is over time, we know every year there could be something that we're looking at as a resource. Next year, it would be ELA that we would be coming to you looking for some ancillary items. So it's just a matter of preference of how we would want to break that out.
And I think for me, it's more of, while you're saying $100,000, that's just the first time up front. You buy you're basically buying the subscription and all of your initial costs, like you're saying, your teacher's kits. But then if you're buying into this subscription for 5 years, like you just said, there's an ongoing cost with consumables. So over the course of that 5 years, what's the total consumption cost of
is-
in that?
That is,
So that is the
cost
$100,000
broken down.
in the 5 years.
111, yep.
Right.
So-
It breaks that down over 5 years. We get the online access, all of that stuff comes with it. But it's just if you would break that down into a yearly cost, the way the companies do it is you'd be able to do that with your consumables. So you have more of a year one upfront cost.
Like, so it might be like $30,000 the
then
first
it
year,
would
and then it
break
might be
down
like
lower.
15 every year after that. I kind of like the idea of breaking, if it's not, sometimes when you do that, they charge you way more money because you've now broken it up. But if they're not, I kind of like it from a budgetary standpoint to spread it out over the 6 years. I don't know.
I mean, that certainly is a broader discussion. We could put that in. We can certainly look at what those would be. I do know there's some other programs, reading, that's coming down the pike as well, and others. So it's my thought, again, you guys will kind of drive what you would like to see in terms of that. Do you want to see that commitment every year for 5 years as a placeholder, knowing that it's going to be there? Do you want to see it one time and it's done, knowing that there's going to be other curricular reviews that are going to come into play?
Well, I guess I think my question is does every place that you're buying a curriculum from, whether it's math, reading, allow you to space it out? But basically what I'm hearing is that there's always going to need to be a placeholder for curriculum refresh. And what does that placeholder amount need to be? And does that need to be a larger lump sum and to just purchase it all at once?
And that's what's really tough,
Or-
especially with elementary, because
Right.
that is where normally, and that runs us up to K through 5. So we're covering 5th grade at the middle school as well. And those are typically your bigger purchases.
Well, yeah, I
when
mean,
you're
the last
buying those
time-
big- and
the
our
last time
math
we did-
program, I went and looked, it was, for 6 years, my math, we paid $120,000 all up front.
And last time we did ELA, it was like
It was
350.
203.
I think it was, I thought it was more than that, because I remember
I can
buying
double check,
it.
but I know it was like right
The only
over
reason
200.
it became a big issue because we purchased it right before COVID.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, 'cause we're in year
abandoned
5
it
right now.
because we went to Keola after we had just paid $350,000 for an ELA program.
Yep.
So that could be a much bigger ticket next year.
Could be. We also, as we have reviewed in the instruction section a little bit earlier, you saw placeholders for foundations consumables. Those are things that we have budgeted in for reading over time. We're in the line of thinking that we have some great programs in place that maybe next year we're looking at more comprehension materials. Maybe it doesn't require a full-blown
Yeah.
elementary reading program that we need to purchase.
Yeah.
So those are things we're going to start investigating, and just getting those into the hands of our teachers next year. Hopefully with a pilot or something like that, that we can take a look at things, but it's going to look a little different for reading.
And I don't know what the answer is. I felt like the idea that we're going to have a discussion about it because I think there is some benefit for both ways. And knowing that if we're going to have whatever that number is, like you're saying, if there's a number we want to keep in there for potential or curriculum enhancements or whatever, that we always have as a placeholder, so we're not getting hit with the $100,000, $150,000 bomb
Yeah.
every 6 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is why I value the curriculum cycle that you're trying to develop, because there's a financial component to that you know which years you're going to financially be heavy or not. You need to buy scientific probes at the high school or, whatever. And that's all really a part of why we need a curriculum cycle. And I'm just having nightmares, and Phil probably remembers this, of sitting back when we first went to iPads. And we were told we would never have to buy any of these books ever again. It would all be online. It would all be free. That was all just not true. But so that's why we need to have a written and followed curriculum cycle, which is fluid, which you're doing, and it has money attached. So I don't know that it matters. It probably does, but I don't know that it matters if we buy it all now or another year. It just matters that we have a cycle with money attached to it that we have not had for a long time.
So I think at March caucus, we can kind of present what it would look like for the one-time purchase versus purchase over time, and knowing, and then we will update this number anyway, and then that will allow us to adjust it accordingly, and prepare. And that way you can kind of have both of those to decide how you want to direct us to put it in. Well, first, if you want to approve it, adopt it. Number two, and then how we want to procure it.
Would it be worthwhile looking back at the last 5 years, what our curriculum purchases were historically, to know amount-wise, to know maybe looking ahead in the next 5 years, how much potentially, at least as a ballpark figure, what we might be looking at? Because then that might give us an idea of how we might want to think about how we want to put this in the budget as a potential line item by looking back historically. Granted, it's not going to be apples to apples, but at least gives us something to compare to.
I'm going to answer this so Krista doesn't have to. It would be nice to be able to do that, but I'm not kidding you. We had no curriculum until Krista arrived. So I think it's really hard to go back and look at what money was being spent on. Even the money that was being spent within curriculum was not being spent in any systematic way toward programs. I think that would be really, really hard to do.
And I can definitely go back and.
We can try.
Historically, I've done that with several departments, like math. We're kind of working on curriculum now, things that have been purchased over time. I mean, there's been a lot of subjects where things haven't been purchased in ages, so.
Well, I know, we're playing
Yeah, it's-
catch up right now, which
it
is.
is. It feels like you're
which
playing
is-
catch
Which
up.
is, it's gonna maybe cost us a little more until we get to a point where our curriculum is more current.
Oh, I'm not saying more than like 5 years. I mean, I'm not saying like go on a treasure hunt. I mean, 5 years, and if there's nothing there in 5 years, then it's like we haven't bought it. I mean, this isn't like a go digging archaeologically to find stuff. Like, it's, if there's nothing there in 5 years, there's nothing there, and we have nothing to go on, and we know that then there might be some bigger purchases.
Definitely.
And typically, our two large ones are math and reading, or ELA, sorry. And there's going to be, as new courses come on board, or, an AP course, or as such, there is a requirement for a particular text or supplies, opportunities there. So you're right, kind of keeping some of that in line will be a decision we would want to look at, rather than purchase all or purchase sequentially for the 5 years during the course of that. I think either way definitely allows for that to be done and established, and there's pros and cons certainly to both of those opportunities. It's great that we're talking about these programs, and that's exactly what they are. They're programs, and our curriculum is what's driven and written. Those curriculum maps are what's written and aligned with the PA course standards and the eligible content, and the teachers are working based upon that curriculum review cycle right now, and spending a lot of time working on those and valuing those teacher discussions to get in alignment with each other, and having those maps to follow, and then those maps serve as that course for us to pick the programs that align with how we want to deliver that content. So very, very important that process continues. Sorry, kind of went on a bird walk there a little bit. Any further questions on curriculum instruction and assessment for the Division of CIA? PA ETEP is going to be under our technology, under applications. And that is one of those elements that was paid for by ESSERS. We've had it before, and we were able to add some components and pay for it by ESSERS.
Is it an annual fee?
It
Yes.
would have been, yes.
It will not be, or will it?
It is.
So we have to pay for it next year.
We have covered the cost of it through ESSERS,
For this year.
but it would be an annual fee, and we'll be able to tell what that annual fee would be. And when, I believe it's 2027, I'm probably wrong on that end, but it's one of those dates where it no longer is paid for under that subscription time that we were able to purchase for the length of it. That would be a budgetary item. So we'll be able to tell you what that item is.
Okay, that makes point. So it's not So like PAETAP, which is a teacher evaluation assessment tool, that was paid for through ESSERS for like a subscription for 3 years. So it's not in next year's budget, but it's going to be 2 years from now, roughly.
Yes, you're gonna see it in here.
Subscriptions that are paid for.
Yeah, you're gonna see it in here, but I believe it's earmarked under ESSERS in parentheses.
So we may be feeling the pangs of ESSERS for a couple years when these subscriptions run out.
Yeah, and there's a few of them. I don't believe that pain is going to be a mammoth.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. When we look at the technology we use and some of the applications we use or programs we use to drive the entire school district, few of them are paid for ESSERS.
And I love PAETAP, and I think it's fantastic. And
great
frankly,
program.
if I had anything to do with it, we would have bought it if we had ESSERS or not.
So we purchased
But
it
it's
prior
something
to
we're gonna have
ESSERS.
suck up.
Yep, and it was one of those areas where it was eligible to
Okay.
be used.
2270,
Yes, sir.
training and development.
All right. What's that? Did you?
I predicted that's where we were going.
For that linear approach. Nice work. So 2270, training and development. I'm going to stay here with Ms. Snyder. She does a lot for our professional learning plan for our teachers, staff, and this kind of
Sure, and I
helps to
feel
align
like
that.
several of our departments, we work together on this. I've worked with Deneen in special education to get us another teacher trained through Wilson Reading. You see, it's a little pricey to do so, and it's very intensive for the teacher to go through that training. So we've been trying to do every year to get one of those, staff members trained on that intervention. Also kind of working, with Mrs. Matash and the technology department, just taking a look at professional learning that we can send teachers on. So this would be our second year that we're collaborating in our budget for that as well. And then we have some conference attendance down under dues and fees. And then we did remove the staff incentives for this year.
Not that we don't want to incentivize staff. We have to come up with a different way in
Different way
order
to-
to be able to do that.
Is there a new teacher induction in there somewhere?
I'm sorry, that was, I think, on 2260 at the bottom. I'm sorry, I
Yes,
think we missed
yes,
that
it was.
section at the bottom. We do have some supply money for new teacher induction, and then you can see that line item at the bottom. We have 3 days at the beginning of the summer before all of our teachers come back to campus that we have new teacher induction days. So there's supplies, meal included with that. And I'm sorry, Multicultural Day as well, we didn't bring up, and that was another expense that I work with Ms. Heather Nalson, who is our EL teacher. She created the Multicultural Day celebration. Last year was our first year. Coming up on February 24th, we're having our second annual event, so this is just a budget item for us to be able to provide for that evening.
All right.
We done with training and development? No more questions on that?
Hearing none, we'll move on.
2380,
All right, the one I wanted to get to, Office of the Principal. I mean, I just think it's a good area. Come on.
attendance?
I think we should play a game next. It's called Guess Which Tab We're going to go to.
Attendance is blue, that will be covered next week.
Yeah, I know, but you're already on the ones that were covered.
I'm sorry, in 2 weeks, that's part of special
We can do 2360. I like that one.
Chiefs.
He's in charge.
Guess we'll let Jason in charge.
2380, here we go.
Sorry, I'm just texting my son is home. I'm making sure that he's doing what he's supposed to do.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, I know. All right. Taking a look at.
What's the teacher pay?
Yeah, teacher pay and coordinator pay is for a summer program at the elementary school. I believe it's called Summer Soar, which is identified, some students are identified as needing some supplemental because of some summer slide, if you will, if that's the right word to use, or learning loss. And it just provides some extra and some ancillary follow-up for those students. And the teams do a great job of identifying who those students are. Did I answer that? Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Yep. Some supplies for the principal at the elementary school? To support the principal's office. So when I say principal, it's to support the entire office and operations. Printing and binding, line 64 to 66. Number 66, they make sure at kindergarten registration that students have a book to take home and they practice, and they have that to begin that process of reading together. What about- I'm really not funny tonight at all. You're trying. Thank you. I think what's more funny is I'm trying. Some miscellaneous expenses. Heading into middle school. Some supplies to support the principal's office at the middle school. That takes us to line 159.
Okay, I have a question. So is this one of those situations where things were put in a different location? I mean, because the supplies are going from 9,000 to 23,000. There was a big jump in the elementary school too, relative. Like, is it one of those things where these were somewhere else? Because that 10,000 is even with 595 taken out for the Smensels. So I'm just like, because there's nothing, there's no little plus sign to click on there. I was just wondering if
Yeah, at the
there
middle
was-
school, there's a plus sign.
Oh, there is in the middle school? I don't want to touch it.
There's one at the elementary as well to be able to compare those.
Yeah, I don't see one at the elementary for me. No, the elementary school, it's the middle school then. No. So I've got supplies, principals, elementary school at 25, and then miscellaneous expenses, principals, elementary school. Ken, what are you doing?
So Ken, she's asking about the miscellaneous expenses. I know you put some extra reward items in there, so you might just want to touch base on that.
So I can touch on a couple of these here, like
Yeah.
Yeah, I certainly can speak to the fact that you and Mrs. Walsman, as well as Mr. Funk and Mr. Black and the teams have done a really good job of taking a serious look at this and not just cutting and pasting categories.
So I think my only question is for the ice cream and the ice cream parties. Do you guys typically get alternatives for our students who have like lactose or allergies and stuff like that? Because I know in talking in years past with Mrs. Boas that, you know, there's always students coming in and coming through that she had to attend to, and I'm sure the nurse does now. So wanting to make sure that we're including all of our students and stuff like that.
Ice in there for those students.
And even when they go through I think at the middle school and high school, when they go through and they have and at the elementary, when they have the chance to purchase some of those novelties, if that's the right word to use, there are some dairy-free options in there as well. I think it's Hershey's ice cream is who they use.
But did you intend to have two different line items for ice cream? One from nutrition and one for high five? Okay.
I thought we got rid of high fives.
No, he said he had.
Taking a look at middle school, principal's emergency, and then we'll go into high school.
Is the same thing with your supplies too? That you just, because that's showing like a,
No, I kept what was in there last year, and then I broke it out more detailed down below. So are you saying that some of the numbers up in line 121 can be reduced because the details down below?
I'd have to check it out, but I don't know, it shouldn't go up $14,000. That doesn't seem right to me.
Because, yeah, so.
Like that paper there. I'd have to look, I have to go into further detail on that. That looks like a, yeah, no, it's like, yeah. It doesn't make, yeah.
so you know what's interesting is if you add up the 500, wherever the rounded numbers were up above, that comes out to about 9,000, which is what it was last year. I wonder
All
if,
the way at the top.
yeah,
So
I
maybe
wonder
the-
if maybe when it broke it out, it duplicated the amount.
Duplicate them again, that's what I think's happening. I think it's,
You know what I mean? Like if you go, if I'm looking at like 121, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, if you add those up, that comes up to about 9,000 and change, which is what was allocated last year. And
Correct, that's what I was asking. Those are by grade activities, so are you saying that, and the PBIS students rewards, are you saying that we should take those out and?
no, I think you combine two things. That's what I'm, like that 9,000 was one page last year, and the 13,000 for all the supplies you have listed, I think was a different page. I'll have to look at it though. I think it was something, I think two things were combined there. I can check it out. Because it's not going to work. Because we ordered paper and everything last year, so it shouldn't be like a $56 difference. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Can you check and see if it was budgeted for last year, though? Maybe
Oh,
it
it was,
wasn't,
yeah.
maybe it wasn't budgeted for last year.
It wasn't $14,000 difference, I can guarantee you that, but I can look at it.
guess what I have open? Let me look. Of course I do.
And certainly looking at those supplies under here for the activities as you go, kind of keeping that a baseline number, and then working into the Distinguished Honors Breakfast, I believe that's what that is, or a celebration for those who received the Distinguished Honors, and the catering associated with that. If you continue down into that, really that paper in line 138 is paper for the entire year for the building, which is a higher number. And that may have been in a different element at one point, I'm not sure, under instructional supplies, but that's $4,799. All of these items are certainly, I think, you know,
If I
there's
look-
nothing that sticks out that's not of an anomaly by any means.
If I go into my budget, not your, mine I have, it was, my principals last year was 19,794. So I don't know where the 9,000 came from. But I can get with Mr. Browse, and we can look at it and see where
Yeah, just to see if,
discrepancies at. Yep.
and again, every item on here seems fine, and it could have been, you know, classification of a different area or something that needed to have more detail associated with it this year than rather a large grouped up area in the past.
Yeah, now what did you have yours on last year? Yeah, last year I have 9,322, exactly what Jason has. But it's weird because it has all of the grade activities, which were drawn over, and then it has like Ticonderoga wood pencils, $6. Like, it's almost like it was for one pack.
Right.
It looked like it was, like, the supplies are listed as $15, $7, $11, $14, $7, $9, compared to those numbers this year. Yeah, like this year you have pencils at 85, and last year pencils were listed in here, not saying that you put them in there that way, but last year they were listed as $6.
And those are the objects that make it difficult for Jason to take a look at when he's cross-referencing the two, when he sees $6 and trying to adjust it. Then we get the realized number or a new number that's 35, and it looks like it's this holistic jump and boom. Or it's broken apart differently because it was labeled as 7. Well, really, it was 7 times 6, 42, and it was added correctly, and it was a miss that I had last year, or an omission, or not broken down into the areas. And those things, when we look at it to this level of detail, I will be transparent, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen on a regular basis because we are forecasting 25, 26 sitting right here, right now, at February the 13th, and trying to figure out what we're going to use February 13th of 2026. It's a challenge. But it's a fun challenge, and we're ready to rock and roll on to the next areas. Nope. Okay.
I just have a question as I was scrolling through, and I know we didn't get to the high school yet, but
Yeah.
Mr. Funk adds postage, and I didn't know if the middle school or the elementary school also needed to possibly put postage in their budgets because they mail out, or does that go out through the district office, or how does that, like,
So-
should they be accounting for postage
So it
in
all
theirs?
does go through the district office, but
Okay.
it's separated by building when we do the account codes. So it is something we will look at to see what roughly we've used what we've used for the mail services for each building, and see if that's something that
That
is.
should be line itemed. Okay. Yeah, no, because it just like stood out to me. I was like, oh, he's calling out postage, but yeah, we don't have anything called out for elementary or middle.
Actually, most of the postage is run through the business office. There's a big budget for that in
Oh,
there. So I don't know
okay.
if there's anything specific from a high school perspective. If some of the stuff you're buying might get coded, if there's shipping on it or something like that, or if that, you broke that out for some other reason.
Maybe a little bit, usually work the costs into the other supplies, but, yeah, office, a lot, so much.
Is that then a duplicate possibly, or because you're saying you have a larger?
I'll take it out.
Okay. I mean, I don't need it necessarily. I mean, I think it's just something to look at, that if there's a larger amount budgeted that's for all of the.
We're gonna repurpose it.
And I'm looking at underneath Jason's, like, it looks like this year, the coming up year, you have the toner cartridges. That's what's a big ticket. That wasn't in last year's budget. But I don't know if it was somewhere else in here. Like, if you look at, it's like thousands of dollars on toner cartridge and paper, which of course you need, I get it. But I'm wondering if it was somewhere else, maybe.
Yeah, we can
It
certainly.
seems like that would be something you'd need every year.
Yeah, we could take a look at that. That is the copiers, that we have the toner for the copier derived by, correct?
Yeah, because it's copy paper is
I don't think it's individual.
$4,700 and then $3,000 in toner cartridges.
Yep.
I'll compare the two from last session and see what it is. There's maybe someone had a comment, they showed up or something.
Yeah.
Last toner cartridge last year was only $5.99.
Yeah, yellow is listed as 1,000, all three of them are $1,000. And then the
Really,
black
the
is
only other
688.
printers you have are, is there one in the library as well? No. STEM?
Anyway,
No. Okay.
yeah, but no, wait a minute, but you have, so when you're saying toner cartridge at $5.99,
Let me just check it out and I'll get back to you.
no, I mean, we have it here twice, we have it in here too, plus the ones above.
Toner cartridges every year, so I'm not sure why. I'll take a look at it.
Okay,
Yeah, you're right. They are individual because they're HP 570A.
okay. Would have been quicker to do attendance.
So moving on here to travel principal high school, line 202, and then down to line 220. We have line 225, which is books and printed material, which is the AP simulation, which is $704, and career readiness and transition materials. This amount. So it's AP simulation as well as career readiness and transition materials. And the AP simulation is a AP readiness projection for the AP test. Is that accurate? $238 to $242. And closing out with 248 to 254. You'll see new teacher induction. He added some to support the teachers within the high school, because in our new teacher induction program, we do it as a district, but then we break down. And a lot of times there's individual meetings that occur at each of the building levels. All right.
2420, people services.
Good choice.
Sorry. We don't have new teacher induction budgeted for the other two buildings, do we? Just the high school. So is the high school doing, I mean, I think it's great, but are we only doing something special for our new teachers at the high school, not a middle and elementary. That's,
So there's a new teacher for the
Krista
district.
has it.
And I think Mr. Funk added some money in there as well to see if there's, and again, the principals can use any discretionary funds or other ancillary. And I think it's, if you wanted to do a small luncheon for them, if you wanted to order a book, to kind of do a book study, it kind of gives you a little bit of some supply money. Principals can use some of their supply money for that as well. So I think that is.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
It's just not in the other two buildings.
Yep.
If you look at it, the principal emergency funds in the middle school and the elementary school are higher than the principal emergency fund in the
Okay.
high school, right? If I'm looking, I can't scroll this thing.
But that it all comes out in the wash then.
Right. I can't find it.
But that, certainly. And both of the schools, all three of the schools have done a great job of breaking the induction and supporting teachers. And every teacher, every cohort, every group certainly needs a little something different. There are some district-wide required entities and areas we need to go over. And then there are some building specifics when you get down into that granular as what that looks like, as well as what some of the new onboarding, when we get teachers and we start getting into a new math program, continuing to make sure that those teachers are onboarded with that particular training as well. Good questions. 2420 pupil services? 2420 pupil services? The elementary school, nurse, and an outstanding nurse and an outstanding LPN who supports the entire district. The LPN actually also adds as a substitute during the course and goes along on a tremendous amount of trips. She's fabulous. Pupil services supplies at the elementary school. The middle school LPN. Some supplies for the office. And nurse at the high school. And our supplies at the high school. Under miscellaneous expenses, EpiPens, which is kind of that standing order to try. Sometimes there's a program called EpiPens in the classrooms. You try to get on that program. Sometimes it's successful and sometimes it is not, depending on the availability. And then there's Smarties and crackers needed to have on supply for, obviously, crackers for stomach and Smarties for the sugar content or the sugar, I believe. That was 2420.
I got one more.
Let's do it.
3210.
Good way.
Leanne wanted to do attendance.
I know, we skipped attendance.
Tune in next week.
You were in there as a two-term,
Did I?
yes.
If you do attendance in the next 5 minutes, you'll come back next week.
Oops. All right. Student activities. What was that number again? Sorry. 2340?
3,200? 3210, something like that.
Thank you. All right, student activities. Student activities and some co-curricular positions that are delineated under the collective bargaining agreement. Those positions are located here. Those positions are only filled when those are only paid out when those positions are filled. Repair and maintenance, we have the band and choir. We have some repairs and items as needed, as well as some uniform alterations. And I'll stop talking in lines number 20 through 21.
Alterations of uniforms would be less since they're brand new this year.
Well, yes, they will, but I think it's the timing of when those uniforms come in. Is that,
Yes, that timing and then also the fitting.
but moving forward, we should see with some of not needing to cuff or hem, some of the pants. I think there's some snaps located in there. They have a lot of functionality to them.
Shouldn't need to.
I'm confused. When you say fitting, like, what do you mean? Like, we're not custom fitting these to students,
No,
right?
Clarified that because they come in and help fit close.
Yeah, they should last like 10 years or, yeah. I'm used to wool band uniforms that last year after year after, like, lots of years.
Line 27 through 35, keeping along the lines of field trips to support our band and choir programs.
The difference between 28 and 35. '28 substitute teacher for absence and 35 is substitute teacher daily rate.
So looking at 28, that has to be specific to a particular trip that they were going to go on, is why it probably was earmarked only for $600 to support something. And then substitute line number 35 is that holistic look at all of, could be West Side singers, when West Side goes out on a lot of gigs, especially during the holiday season, I believe is a really busy time for them, or special events at the Capitol.
One's the runners for band,
Okay.
4,500 is for the West Side Choir.
Maybe could we put that in there? Just put substitute teacher band and then down, that way we'll know for next year.
Lines 41 to 45, music, and then the cost to ship the music.
I guess the question is what is the difference amongst all of the shipping and handling, and could that not just be one line item? Or at least specify the difference as to why it has to be 3 separate line items?
I think we were trying to stay as consistent as possible from last budget. As you see from the 20, from the last budget, those numbers were almost identical in the amount of shipping and handling. But
But is it from different manufacturers, like shipping and handling from
Correct.
X manufacturer?
Yeah.
Then could we earmark that's, or,
I mean,
Otherwise, it's-
when we roll that into the budget, it's shipping and handling. I don't believe we tag that, do we, individually?
No, I'd rather combine it into one.
yeah, I mean, it,
Steve Weiss shipping, like to your point, Steve Weiss shipping, so then there should be Marcy Wahlberg shipping.
right.
You know, Starburst shipping.
And again, I think the key, when we're making these decisions on shipping and handling, or we're making these decisions on substitutes, or we're making these decisions on X, Y, and Z, we'll note these because we want to make sure we have consistency. So next year when we sit, we know that that's what we've done and that's the direction. So we're all in agreement, so we don't keep,
Is this for us to ship somewhere or for something to
that
be
is
shipped
for
to us?
that product to come to us.
And what product is coming to us?
Sheet music and Steve Weiss Shipping, which is a vendor.
Why isn't the shipping just added into the cost of the product?
We have to separate that according to the charts of accounts separately. So it's why it's in here separate. Correct?
Is that a state law? I'm just trying to figure out why. You said we have to.
I believe it is coded separately. We can look into that.
Yeah, I think in the chart of accounts, they want you to pull out the shipping and record it as postage instead of including it into the cost of the expense, but I'll look into that.
Well, because I think to my point, like, you could lump it, I don't know what anybody else thinks, you could lump it as this is shipping and handling charges, and then in your register, you're gonna put, you know, this was shipping and handling on February 11th that was from Steve Weiss, or this was shipping and handling on, you know, January 3rd, to be able to see that potential breakout. Otherwise, if you're gonna break it out this way, then in the detailed line, put where, because it sounds like we order from the same places every time, break it out to say, this is, you know, the place that we're gonna be, so that it's differentiated. Otherwise, I'm like, why, like, to me, it's like, why do we have so many different shipping and handlings?
We can certainly do that, and I like what Mr. Brown said. If we could just group it up, shipping and handling for music, and put it, because we do have to register that separately, just as long as you're comfortable with that and you
Yeah,
see
I
a
think,
grossed up
I
number.
think what'll end up happening is, once it's all in there at $780,
What
undoubtedly
in the
next
world are
year,
we
we're gonna be
spending
going,
$780
why are we
on
spending
shipping?
$780 on shipping
But
and handling?
as long as there is a,
But you should have a detailed register then of what went into that 700.
They will, but when we get the budget next year and we have new board members, we're gonna have somebody that's
no
gonna
one can
say,
say you don't look at every item, because I've, typically when you purchase something, it is shipping and handling, and here's the total price, so.
yeah.
This is,
Mr.
yeah,
Brass will be able to break it out and have a little
wow.
plus sign, and they'll push and be like, whoops.
I see what you're saying. You mean a plus sign on this budget? Oh, yeah, as long as it's there where you can see what it is. I think otherwise we'll end up asking and we'll forget that we had this conversation. Oh, don't you remember when we all talked about it, you know?
And we'll tackle into travel band and choir, or travel for band and choir. Supplies for band and choir, lines number 65. Moving down to line 126. Line number 125 and 126 are different, but they're two different programs. One is choir and one is band. What's the tux? I believe that's West Side Singers. They wear tuxedos. As you review some of the supplies there, we'll go into books and printed materials, lines 132 to 139. Dues and fees, lines 147 to 161. Lots of different memberships and student registrations for the amount, certainly of different contests and performances that they go to represent and earn their way into. Because I believe you don't just apply and get in. There's a lot of auditioning and selection that comes with that. And we do well in and some miscellaneous items. Lines number 167 to 174.
Mr. Funk, when it says additional community gigs, what is that paying for transportation? Or,
173?
yeah,
That could be hey, we want the band to participate in this event to cover.
okay.
Attendance? Attendance.
2130.
Thank you. All right, attendance. We have salary and benefits grossed up here for 2 attendance staff for the district. The attendance staff does student registration, student enrollment, and one attendance personnel also does all of our Pennsylvania Information Management System, PIMS data reporting, an incredible amount. They work with the building principals on ensuring that the letters our attendance letters go out, as well as serve as our attendance officers, and will take one of us along during the homeschool visits that may need to occur and residency checks. They work with Ms. Snyder on McKinney-Vento, ensuring and supporting students who may be classified under and need supports under that program as well, and support us when it comes to being that foster liaison also. A data summit. The data summit is produced by the Pennsylvania Department of Education, and that's really where all of the PIMS changes come into play, all the new data reporting changes come into play. So they make it sound pretty exciting, but it is a lot of information and a lot of notes of what's forthcoming. So to hear it from them, to get questions and answers is really important. I believe it's normally held in Hershey, A Kappa. Trying to think what that stands for. Association of Attendance, and the way it is, Personnel, PA Pupil Services Association, maybe?
Oh, no, it's a Hotel Hershey is where they have it.
Okay. I'll have to look up what that, I'm sorry, that abbreviation is. There's some travel put in here as well, back and forth, a travel to, when they have to appear at the magistrate's office or in New Bloomfield for county court, residency checks, And they also are, both of them are licensed notaries, and they continue to carry that notary themselves.
It's the Attendance and Child Accounting Association.
Oh, thank you. Attendance and Child Accounting Association. Thank you. And that is attendance.
Early in.
So we have about 20 minutes. Is there any section at this point you want to go over the principal's office or the superintendent's office?
I mean, that's up to you.
I say we adjourn early.
I say we adjourn.
Okay.
I do have one question, though.
Yes, sir.
So from what we learned the other night, we have a $19 to $20 million surplus. Is that correct? Reserves.
In general.
I believe in
With that
fund-
said, I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I can't support any budget that has a tax increase in it. I think that's too much money for us to have and still be raising taxes.
One thing I did, Mr. Lehman, and I haven't shared this with anyone else, I think I mentioned it to Leanne. I contacted PSBA, well, actually, I went on their website, and because I know they have this information, and their website, they're changing it. So anyway, so I called them. PSBA used to have guidance that said basically how much money they recommend a district should keep, not that PSBA is gospel, how much they recommend you should have in capital reserves, and then how much of that should be, what's the word, accounted for?
So your commitments?
Committed, how much should be committed, how much should be not committed. And I know I've seen in the past, and they don't have it right now, they're working on their website, they had like all the districts in the state, like the percentage of districts that had this much in a fund balance, a percentage of districts that had this much in a fund balance. I called them again today because they still hadn't got me the information. They were gonna try to get it for me, so I'm gonna send that to everybody when I get it, just so we have a general idea of where we are, where our fund balance is, what PSBA recommends we do with the fund balance. And I personally want to use that as a jumping off point to look at that. So I don't know if that helps at all, but I'd like to bring that to the table when I get it.
And I certainly appreciate that and respect that statement. I think there's some, one of the things, and again, I wouldn't be sitting here and not doing my role and responsibility by not saying that a fund balance, we just have to be prudent, that is not designed to really counterbalance the majority of a budget in a long-term process. And when there's no increase, that increase then is not an increase that is, it takes a multiple amount of time to make up any slight increase at all. And we all know that. We've talked about that. And when our auditor came at the board meeting on Tuesday, it was a restatement of finances. And again, there's a possibility that as we continue, there could be another restatement of those finances as well. So we just want to be prudent that while, yes, we have 19 approximately million in the fund balance, there's another restatement. So I want to be prudent to know that is subject to that. And that could happen as we continually work to ensure that our accrual counting is where it certainly continues to be as we work in tangent with our accounting firm. If I
Well-
said that appropriately.
Just based on a very fast Google search, according to the Government Finance Officers Association, a school district should generally maintain an unrestricted fund balance of at least 2 months of operating revenues or expenses in their general fund. So 2 months. 5 to 10% was another thing that I found. But that's unrestricted. That's not counting what you have as restricted that should be.
But some of it we can't, really, can we? I mean, we have things that are in PSERS and in the healthcare accounts that we really can't.
No, we can change that.
Just healthcare, there's nothing in PSERS?
All 3.7 million. We have it earmarked potentially for PSERS, but that doesn't have to be.
Okay.
You have the ability
Okay.
to set your commitments. The only commitment that is really obligated is our South Central Trust reserves. Those others, you do have the ability to say, I'd like to put $10 million in PSERS, or I'd like to put $1 million in future debt service, or I'd like to put none of it in. So you have that ability. We will make those recommendations, and you have the ability to alter those at any time. Plus, you have the ability, with the majority vote, to remove those commitments at any point as well, and move those around. And you don't have to wait until the anniversary of every audit to do so. You have that ability to do that at any point.
So,
Your question, we're looking at a fund balance which is about 50% of our annual budget, which is like basically 6 months.
I'm not arguing that.
No,
I'm
no,
just
no.
giving I'm just giving a reference point. But that's specifically saying unrestricted. I think we also have to think about then if there's certain things that do need to be committed to, whether it's covering PSERS, whether it's covering health insurance, right off the bat, that needs to be taken off the top because that's committed to something for, those particular things. Then then you have to set aside to say, all right, do you have this amount? Then the remaining is what we're saying is above and beyond that amount that is truly to then really gauge, do you have that amount to kind of make that decision of, does it balance the budget? Do we looking at raising taxes, those types of things? Then that's really what you're looking at. Not the total sum, which, yes, when you look at that total sum, that sounds like a lot of money, but that's really not a total sum that we have to play with.
No, I understand. I've never heard unrestricted before. We have committed funds and uncommitted funds, but unrestricted, I think, must be, the only thing it could be is the health. The only thing we have to have in there is that health piece, which is what, 3-point-something million?
Yeah, something in that range.
So the rest of that is all considered basically unrestricted. We can unrestrict if we want it to be. It's a good problem to have. But we just have to figure out what to do with it. You can't balance a budget on it either.
so,
Correct, and I would be very, I just want us, remember when it was restated, I just want to be cautious that we could come back in the audit in the following year and realize that there's some other restatements or issues. I don't know that to be the fact, but I want us to exercise prudence, extreme prudence with that. That's my disclaimer, I think.
Well, I understand that. You could raise taxes next year. And I understand you lose the compounding effect if we don't raise taxes now. But we can raise taxes till we're dead, and we're not going to ever catch up with our fund balance at this point. We just have to keep cutting and doing a good job. I think that if you ask the people that live in our district if they thought we had half a year's worth of fund balance, should we raise taxes, I think 90% of them would say no.
So I I want to make sure I've got sort of numbers right as I'm thinking about this as well. So right now, without really any major changes in this budget, we're at a $2.7 million deficit. And that's assuming we've raised taxes to the index. And last year, I thought like a 1% gave us about $100,000 in revenue. Is that still about the case? So if we don't raise taxes, then we would be facing a $3.2 million deficit. And last year's deficit was about 1.5. Now, my understanding is part of the reason why that number's gone up in deficit is because we have $800,000 of ESSER's money, $900,000, that we no longer have, and we had the $600,000 of payment holiday that we took from the medical last year, which would bring us to about 1.5. So if you take 1.5 off of the 3.2, you're close to where we were last year. And we also know we were in teacher negotiations, so we have to figure that we're going to have something that's going to have to be built into the budget. So, yeah, I don't know. I hear what you're saying, Phil. I think I am concerned about the restatement from Klasick the other day about that money because I'm cautiously optimistic about that, but cautiously optimistic. I do agree that I'm concerned that next year we could
so
find out that
he
it's
didn't-
not.
He didn't change any numbers the other night. He just said that we had $4 million here and we're only spending 1.5 every year, so we're just gonna move that out. It's not like we gained money. We still had that money. It was just reserved in a different account. So now it's all together because he moved that out of there. But because we had 17 last year, we were flat this year or whatever, somehow we made $2 million. It didn't come out of that account though, because that money was
Yeah, he
already
moved that
in
money
reserves.
into the fund balance.
Yeah, but that was a reserve account already.
Right, but it wasn't in the general fund. It was like finding $100 in your coat pocket after the winter is over. He always had it, he just didn't know it was there. Like, we didn't realize it was there. Nobody knew it was there.
Correct. Well, I'm sure that somebody did, but
Well, right,
none of
none
us
of
knew
us.
that it was there.
Well, let's mark that down for, obviously, for future discussion. Delve into that a little further.
Yeah, March is our job to come to you with some recommendations for commitments to fund balance. And we'll talk, if it probably would be best, we'll talk again at caucus on those. And that way it kind of prepares that discussion. And you can provide myself and Mr. Browse and Mr. Medina a charge as to where you would like those commitments set for the March board agenda.
And whatever PSBA forwards on to me, I will just forward on to all of you.
And again, as I showcased roughly, if we looked at our historic real estate tax millage review for Perry County, last year was 13.2572, and if we went to the index this year with the stub rebalancing that occurs, it would be a 13.3940 approximate tax increase, which is 0.13 increase in mills. So when you look at that maximum tax burden for what you were able to get, I think certainly financially it might be prudent to look at that.
All right, and we can go on with our meeting, although this is going to sound silly, but I'm a rule follower. I did forget an item on the agenda. So can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please? I forgot to make that motion.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passed. So now we have an agenda for the meeting. All right, the meeting schedule is listed there. Our next budget workshop meeting is February 20th. And if it goes as well as tonight, I'm hoping we won't need to have as many budget meetings as we have on the calendar. Any public comments from anyone in the public? Do we have any public comments online? I would like to make a motion to adjourn. Can I have a second?
Second.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Have a good evening.